I thought losing my marriage was the worst betrayal of my life, until my own family chose my ex and forced me to uncover the secret they've been hiding for years. I never imagined my life would split so cleanly into a before and an after. Before the divorce, I was Ethan Cole, dependable, invisible in my own family, the one who always fixed problems quietly. After the divorce, I became the cautionary tale whispered about at family dinners I was no longer invited to. The story they told was simple and cruel. Ethan messed up. Ethan failed his wife. Ethan deserved what he got. No one asked me what actually happened. No one cared that I'd walked away with nothing but a duffel bag and a silence, so heavy it felt like punishment. My ex-wife's name was Lauren Cole, now Lauren Whitmore again, as if erasing my last name erased our entire decade together. We met in college, the kind of meeting that feels ordinary until you look back and realize it shaped everything. She was charming, sharp-tongued, endlessly ambitious. I love that about her. I thought her fire would light my quieter corners. Instead, it burned them down. Our marriage didn't end with screaming matches or flying plates. It ended with exhaustion. Long nights, unanswered questions, a distance that grew so gradually I didn't notice until I was shouting across a canyon. When I finally confronted her about the emotional affair I suspected, texts hidden, late meetings, a sudden protectiveness over her phone, she didn't deny it. She simply said she was unhappy and had been for a long time. Within months, she filed for divorce. What shocked me wasn't that she left. It was that my family followed her. My mother, Diane, stopped returning my calls. My sister, Melissa, told me I needed to respect Lauren's feelings and stop being bitter. My father, Robert, sent one cold message telling me I should have tried harder as a husband. Somehow, in their version of events, Lauren was the wounded party, and I was the villain who broke her heart. At first, I blamed myself. Maybe I really had failed so completely that my own blood couldn't stand by me. I replayed every argument, every missed anniversary, every late night at work. I apologized more times than I can count, not just to Lauren, but to my family, hoping humility would bring them back. It didn't. The final blow came on my birthday. I turned 36 alone in my apartment, staring at my phone, waiting for at least one message from home. Nothing. Later that night, scrolling mindlessly through social media, I saw the post that broke me. A photo of my family at dinner, my parents, my sister, her husband, and Lauren smiling in the center like she'd always belonged there. The caption from my mother read, "Family is forever." That was the moment something inside me hardened. I started asking questions, not to them, but to myself. Why were they so determined to protect her? Why the narrative turned so violently against me? It went beyond sympathy. It felt like loyalty, like obligation. And obligations don't come from nowhere. I hadn't always been blind. Years earlier, there had been moments, odd conversations that stopped when I entered the room, tension that crackled when Lauren and my father were alone together, my mother's anxious insistence that I be patient whenever Lauren treated me coldly. At the time, I chalked it up to stress, to my imagination. Now, those memories resurfaced with sharp clarity. The more I thought about it, the more one possibility terrified me. I decided to dig quietly. I didn't want revenge, not yet. I wanted truth. The first crack came from an unexpected place, my cousin Rachel. She lived out of state and had always been slightly removed from the family's inner politics. We met for coffee when she came into town, and after some awkward small talk, she leaned across the table and lowered her voice. "I shouldn't tell you this," she said, eyes darting around the cafe, "but I think you deserve to know." My heart pounded so loudly I was sure others could hear it. She told me that years ago, before I married Lauren, there had been a massive argument between my parents behind closed doors. No one knew exactly what it was about, but after that night, my mother became fiercely protective of Lauren in a way that made no sense. Rachel had overheard whispers at a family reunion, something about a mistake and keeping it quiet for everyone's sake. Keeping what quiet? I asked. Rachel shook her head. "I don't know, but it wasn't about you, Ethan. That much was clear. That was enough." I started combing through old emails, text messages, anything I still had access to. Lauren had always been careful, but no one is perfect. I found a thread from years earlier between her and my father, innocent on the surface, discussing logistics, favors, support. But the tone was intimate, familiar in a way that made my stomach twist. Then there were the bank records. During the divorce, I'd been too numb to scrutinize every detail. Now I went back and looked closely. There were several unexplained transfers from my parents' account to Lauren's, spanning years. Not small gifts, large sums, enough to raise serious questions. The notes attached were vague. Support, help, family matter. Family matter. The truth hit me slowly, like poison seeping into my veins. My family hadn't sided with Lauren because they thought she was right. They sided with her because they were complicit in something far worse. The final piece came from my mother's old laptop. She had asked me months earlier to fix it, complaining it was slow. At the time, I did the bare minimum and returned it. Now, driven by a mix of guilt and desperation, I remembered that I still had a backup of her files on an external drive. I told myself I was looking for answers, not betrayal, but deep down I knew exactly what I was doing. Buried in a folder labeled Personal were scanned documents, emails, and a handwritten letter dated 8 years ago. The letter was from Lauren. It was addressed to my parents, not to me. She wrote about a relationship that should never have happened, about fear of exposure, about how Ethan must never find out. She thanked them for their continued protection and promised she would handle the marriage carefully. My hand shook as I read it. The relationship wasn't with some stranger. It was with my father. I sat there for hours, staring at the screen, the world narrowing to a single, unbearable point. My marriage hadn't failed because we grew apart. It had been built on a lie so grotesque it made my skin crawl. My family didn't just choose my ex. They chose to bury the truth to protect themselves. I could have stayed silent. I could have disappeared and let them keep their secret. For one night, I considered it. Silence would have been easier. But then I remembered the loneliness, the humiliation, the way they erased me without hesitation. And I knew I couldn't let it stand. I didn't explode immediately. Rage is loud, sloppy. I wanted precision. First, I documented everything. Screenshots, backups, multiple copies stored in different places. I spoke to a lawyer, not about revenge, but about protection. I needed to know where the legal lines were, how to tell the truth without destroying myself in the process. He listened quietly, face unreadable, then told me something that stuck with me. Truth has consequences, he said, but silence has victims. I decided to confront them, not all at once. I started with Lauren. We met in a public place, a neutral cafe not far from where we used to live. She looked startled when she saw me, then annoyed, as if my presence was an inconvenience. "What do you want, Ethan?" she asked, arms crossed. I slid my phone across the table and played the recording I'd made of her letter being read aloud. Her color drained instantly. For a moment, the confident mask slipped, and I saw raw fear underneath. "You went through private things," she hissed. "You destroyed my life," I replied calmly. "This is the difference." She didn't deny it. She begged. She told me it had been a mistake, that it happened during a rough patch in her life, that my parents insisted on protecting everyone involved. She claimed she stayed with me out of guilt, that leaving sooner would have exposed too much. "You used me as cover," I said. She looked down. I told her I was going to tell the truth, not just to my family, but to everyone who had been fed lies about me. She threatened me at first, then cried, then offered money. When none of it worked, she left without another word. Next came my parents. I went to their house unannounced. My mother opened the door, her smile fading the second she saw my face. I didn't wait to be invited in. We sat in the living room, the same room where I'd celebrated birthdays, holidays, milestones. My father avoided my eyes. My mother tried to speak first, but I cut her off and laid everything on the table, literally. Printed emails, bank statements, the letter. The silence that followed was deafening. My mother started crying. My father finally looked up, his face older than I'd ever seen it. He tried to justify it, to explain how it got out of hand, how they were trying to protect the family. "What family?" I asked, because it clearly wasn't me. They admitted everything. The affair. The payments. The decision to side with Lauren during the divorce to keep me isolated and less likely to dig. My sister, they said, knew enough to stay loyal, but not enough to question. I left without yelling, without tears. There was nothing left to say. The exposure came quietly at first. I told my sister the full truth, showed her the evidence. She didn't believe me until she did. When the denial shattered, so did her loyalty. She cut contact with our parents within days. Then I told extended family. Then close friends who had distanced themselves after the divorce. I didn't blast it on social media. I didn't need to. The truth spread on its own, heavy and undeniable. Lauren tried damage control. She painted herself as a victim, claimed coercion, mental health struggles, anything that would soften the blow. It didn't work. The narrative collapsed under the weight of facts. My father resigned from his job after rumors began circulating. My parents withdrew from social circles they once dominated. Invitations stopped. Calls went unanswered. The same silence they had given me wrapped around them instead. People started reaching out to me. Apologies, confessions of doubt, regret for believing the lies. Each message helped, but it didn't erase the scars. Healing wasn't instant. Some nights, I still wake up furious, replaying moments of my marriage with new, horrifying context. But I'm no longer confused. Confusion is the cruelest wound. I didn't expose their secret out of revenge. I exposed it because lies thrive in darkness, and I had lived in that darkness long enough. My family chose my ex after the divorce because they were protecting a sin too ugly to face. When I finally told the truth, I didn't just reclaim my name. I reclaimed my life. And for the first time since everything fell apart, I could breathe without feeling like I was suffocating under someone else's shame. You just heard a story of betrayal, survival, and quiet revenge. If it left you thinking, hit like, share it forward, and subscribe for more true emotional stories that'll stay with you long after they end. Every click helps another story find its voice.